Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Right, so Gamora just got her third, fourth buff? Well, who really knows? But on paper it did seem quite minor and somewhat lackluster. Now I do know that there are some Gamora defenders out there that absolutely enjoy the character. This is going to be a basic comparison video of damage before and after the buff. In this first fight, I'm initially letting some of my first buffs to drop off with a very good purpose, because the initial buff duration pre-buff Gamora was very short. And if you focus on maintaining those buffs throughout the entire fight, then you basically get no hit space to ramp up more of those buffs. So if you let the initial ones fall off, then the remaining ones, they just have the longer quality. So I pretty much never focus on letting the buffs that I gain in first 10-20 seconds of the fight to remain for the entire fight with Gamora in her pre-buff state. And that is because, again, if you focus too much on keeping those buffs on, you just don't get any space to build up new ones, because you're consistently focused on dropping that heavy attack, which is like one of the biggest problems with the old buff Gamora, pre-buff Gamora. And now that some time has passed in the fight, I feel much more free to operate. Now, this is also with no synergies. As always, we're going to be taking a look at these damage comparisons with the synergy team, without the synergy team, and maybe I'm kind of making slight tactical error here, so to speak, because if I had done perhaps, more diligent job keeping up those buffs, we probably would have been a bit further on in the fight. However, nonetheless, this is, the way I personally, at the very least, recommend playing Gamora when you do not have synergies active. And now we can see that with 8 Furies, 11 Cruelties, we are already dealing magnificent damage. That is going to be the first visual difference that you're going to notice, that we're going to be getting a lot more buffs, but they are a lot less potent. And that is going to become quite obvious. There will be new animation changes as well, of whom I'm not entirely sure how I feel. I'm genuinely not entirely sure how I feel about animation changes, because Gamora is all about, spamming in that heavy attack as often as you can. And the new animations seem longer, especially on like level 1 and level 2. Heavy attack might be the same duration, and that is not great. So first pre-buff fight, we had 123 hits, 2 minutes and 26 seconds. 123 hits, biggest hit was 45k. Wonderful. Let's go to the fight with synergies. So I'm using like 3 synergies that extend Gamora's buff duration, and one of those synergies also let me start with one of each buffs active. And I'm also using Magneto House of X pre-fight ability to give Gamora increased ability accuracy, and that is gonna help me get these buffs quicker, basically. And this is pre-buff, well, pre-last buff, but this is pre-update Gamora, let's call it like that. And this time I'm going to be trying to maintain all of the buffs, because I do have quite significantly increased buff duration, and I do feel like it is possible to, squeeze in plenty of combos before I need to drop that heavy attack. Even though you can see that here visually, again, those initial buffs do tend to, expire relatively quickly. That's the thing about Gamora. The first buffs, even though you refresh them with a heavy attack, you do not re-extend their duration to match the rest of them. And up until the first 60 seconds in the fight, I believe, or something like that, she keeps increasing her buff duration. So that is why it seems like that buff duration is always like very, very short, because we are trying to keep the initial buffs live. Here I just lost 1 cruelty, which is not the biggest deal. And, I ate 1 hit again. That shouldn't affect anything here too much. I'm going here for level 2 and get a nice 50k level 2 again. So this is, by the way, just for record, like 660 rank 1 6-star Gamora. And here we are, the Winter Soldier is definitely going down significantly quicker. At this point in the fight, we're already doing a wonderful, wonderful damage. I think I'm just going to go straight in the level. No, I'm going to try and squeeze in that heavy attack. And then after this, I'm just going to go for a level 2, I believe. So here, armor breaks are still active. Wonderful. So this was like 70k some damage here. Winter Soldier is only at 2% health. 120k medium crit to finish out the fight. So let's take a look at the final stats over here. So that is 88 hits and 1 minute 50. And, that is fairly good, fairly clean fight here. So now we're gonna go with no synergies with pre-buff Gamora. Now, I do not remember if I showcased level 1 in this fight, but you're going to see the heavy attack, obviously, you're going to see the level 2, and there is definitely a level 1 in the other fight with synergies, so stay tuned for that. The heavy attack does look quite cool. Again, I'm not entirely sure how helpful that change is for her, because if anything, she needed a super short heavy attack, like a single hit, so you're ready to get back in there very quickly. Any kind of like multi-hit heavy attacks for Gamora, I think, is not necessarily the greatest idea. And here we have the new level 2, which now has 3 hits instead of 2, which does give benefit to your ability to inflict additional armor break. So that bit is helpful. But again, increasing the duration of the level 2, not necessarily. Well, luckily it's not a super long heavy attack, but still it is longer than before. And again, with a champion that has to watch the buff duration and timers so quickly, so frequently, I'm not necessarily sure it's like, the best plan there. However, we can see that at 14 Furies, 14 Cruelties, the numbers, they do not seem to go up remotely as quick. So we do get more buffs quicker, but again, all of these buffs are significantly less potent than they used to be. It is easier to proc them, and here I got lucky. He could have punished me, but that's fine. And I'm gonna go in for a level 2. I'm trying to be like a bit more aggressive in this fight as well. So we do, again, nice, decent level 2 here. Small mistake on my part, but it's fine. And I am playing kind of more aggressive in this fight. So if the duration is shorter because of it, that's also definitely partially because of me just kind of keeping him at 3 bars of power, not really giving him opportunities to use many special attacks, and having the fight take a bit in a quicker pace. But here we are. So we finished the fight here, and let's see the post-buff damage. So let's go for it. So it's 103 hits and 2 minutes. So it is quicker by 20 hits. But again, I do think part of it is because of me being significantly more aggressive. So overall, we can say that without Synergy Team, Gamora's damage in shorter fights definitely has increased. There is a problem, however, that I do want to point out. Problem is that Gamora now not only has weaker buffs, but she also has a limit of 25. And this fight we got up to 20. So it's safe to assume that in any fight that, has a million HP, she would be hitting her cap now. Very, relatively early on. And her max damage output, max damage potential definitely has gone down the wayside. Because previously, the effect that you get from 20 Cruelties and 20 Furies, you would achieve first of all with 7 or 8. And second of all, you didn't have that cap, 25. So if the fight was really long or for whatever reason you needed to keep on building these buffs, you could have done so. And now that they have put a ceiling. Now, I do not think that the ceiling is going to come into play in too many cases, but it is definitely worth recognizing the fact that her maximum damage output definitely has been capped significantly lower to where it existed before. That is just a fact. In longer fights, she's nowhere near as good as she used to be now because of 25 cap per buff, and these buffs effectively are significantly less potent. That means that what you get benefit now from, 25, previously you would have gotten by 8 or 10 or something like that. Right, and then we have the Synergy team. So this time I'm using exactly the same Synergy team that I did before. So again, buff synergies that increase her buff duration. Let her start with a single buff of each, which again means less than it did before. And we are using Magneto House of X pre-fight. And we can see that we are definitely building up these buffs very quickly. Within the space of a few combos, we have gotten over 10 buffs. And that means we can bypass miss. That is kind of the biggest thing that she can do now. In specific conditions, she can be used as a miss counter, opposed to before when it was basically impossible, in my opinion. So I do think that the buff did manage to give her feasible, realistic ability to bypass miss. But what it has done to her damage, if she happens to be, let's say, synergized up here, And we definitely see me gaining, thanks to increased ability accuracy, thanks to increased accuracy to proc these buffs, we are gaining them very, very quickly, comparatively speaking. And again, that extra armor break there definitely kind of helps a bit more for damage as well. That is kind of like the upside. And now we can see that I can feel fairly free doing what I want to do with the synergies with even the initial shortened buff duration, because it has gone from 9 seconds at the beginning of the fight to 14 seconds at the beginning of the fight. But here we can see that I'm already at 24 Furies. That means that I'm almost hitting as hard as I ever will. That means I'm pretty much hitting as hard as I ever will. Now, I do think I will let a couple of Furies here drop off just before the end, but it's not going to basically affect anything. I will let few buffs there fall off before the end, but, he's at 5% already. Maximum could have added like 1 hit to my combo meter. But the point is, even at the end, I was only critting for like 12, 14k, and it's 85 hits. And previously, I think it was, well, we can check. So 141, 85 hits, and this was previously with Synergy team, and it is 88. So there's a, majestic 3-hit difference to before to now. And keep in mind, the heavy attack now has less hits, so that's probably where the difference gets evened out and overtaken. So realistically, what is the end result of Gamora's buff, in my opinion? Is she going to be an amazing champion? Absolutely not. This buff, in realistic terms, is a waste of time. She's going to be exactly the same champion. Same people. If you liked Gamora before, you're going to like Gamora now. If you didn't like Gamora before, probably not going to like her now. Because, slight animation change that didn't really do anything to make her much better usability-wise. And yeah, she can now counter miss more easy, but that's just about it. And again, in longer fights, they have actually put a hard damage cap on her, so she can't have the max potential that she used to. And it's kind of a shame. They could have done, even with these underwhelming changes, they could have done, in my opinion, a bigger job. They had to keep, a single hit heavy attack, maybe that's like really rapid. That would have improved things slightly, because you'd have more time to throw it and you would waste less time of your buff duration in the heavy attack animation. If they wanted to add multi-hits on her specials, that would have been good, but level 2 just got the 1 extra hit, which is 1 extra armor break. They could have taken it a bit further, but have it be like a really rapid animation, maybe some sort of, sword swirl with 4 hits or something like that. Then those armor breaks would kind of matter more. But in general, again, if you liked Gamora before, I'm sure you're going to enjoy her now. If you didn't like Gamora before, then there's basically no difference to her now, aside from the fact that she will occasionally now be a viable counter to miss. And it's a shame. It's a shame to see. And especially when the champion just needs so little to be made significantly better. Again, like, why not give her that Wasp's passive stun ability that, Wasp or Dr. Doom has? That's it. That alone would significantly help the champion, where you can do a 4-hit combo and go into heavy attack direct, which means you'd have a lot better time refreshing your buffs, and that is pretty much the only thing that you need. So they did mess around with all sorts of stats and abilities, and some of it's good, some of it's kind of whatever, but they didn't do anything to actually make her better to play with or give us a reason to use her, because there is no specific reason to use her aside from decent damage in a casual questing fight, and that's it. That's the problem the character has. Why would you want to play her? And they had a job with these buffs, to make them more playable, to give them a purpose. And I do think that they failed. I do think that this buff is, again, a waste of time. And it also had no meaningful, it's going to be just one of those things that people forget about in a month. Gamora was buffed. Oh, yeah. Like, do you remember Psycho Man was buffed? Do you remember that Nova was buffed? Do you remember that Ronin was buffed? It's just one of those things that, doesn't have any impact on the game. It's a shame. It's a great shame, especially with all that advertisement that we got from the balancing post, when new people joining the balancing team and buff team, and people are working blah blah blah, and all that idea that was touted before, that they were reducing the buff count to make these buffs mean more. it's shit. These buffs mean nothing. So damage the same, you know, slightly better and without synergies. That's about it. In shorter fights, longer fights worse. So I don't understand. It's just that. I don't understand why. I don't understand who, how, you know. But that is Gamora pre and post buff. And hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'm gonna see you guys later. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the